interviewers are Donna Heath and Lynn Troy. So, Fran, just to get us started, how old are you, what is your date of birth, and where were you born?
1731, and I was born in St. Johnsbury, Vermont.
So that makes you how old? I can't do the math.
87.
80.
Soon to be.
And you were born in St. Johnsbury?
Yes.
In a hospital?
No. In my mother's house, delivered by my grandfather. That was pretty special. My grandfather, Dr. Prevost, Charles Prevost. So,
Well, that's good he was a doctor. That helps.
yeah, he was there for us, and I think every one of us. We're 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls.
And where were you in the lineup?
Number 4.
And are your siblings still around?
3 of us. 3, the oldest sister and my 2 younger brothers are gone. We're 6 people and they've all had cancer. My mother died of cancer. A couple of aunts died of cancer.
How old were you when your mother died?
50, no, Renette is 52 or 3, something like that. And my mother died when she was born. We were both in the hospital at the same time.
Oh, did you grow up in St. Johnsbury?
Sure did. Lived there my whole life till I got married, and then lived here in Waterford. I got married when I was 20.
Mm-hmm. And what did your family do in St. Johnsbury?
My father was a druggist. My grandfather, Landry, was a druggist. And we had Landry's drugstore.
Which is still going.
It's not going. It still has the name on the building,
Oh.
but when my dad got sick, it was sold to Mr. and Mrs. Ravel from France. And it was never the same after that, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Often.
And your mother, did she raise kids, or did she have another?
My mother was a stay-at-home mom until my dad got sick, where she started a yard goods shop right there on Railroad Street. We lived in my grandfather's house on Railroad Street. It's used to be quite a show place, different now. When we lived there, it had trees and flowers all around it, and it's 3 stories high, and
Whereabouts in the road?
it's the only house with a round tower there. It's gray now. I can't remember the address to it, but that's changed since 911 anyway, so I wouldn't remember. But my grandfather had his medical facilities was right there at that house. So when he died, my mother made bedrooms out of the 3 rooms that he used for his office. And when my father got sick and mother took off with the yard goods shop, she redid the 3 rooms for her yard goods shop, so you had a door to go in and everything. It was very
was right
easy
there.
to convert it.
Yeah. Was this the grandfather on your mother's or father's side?
My mother's house, my mother's.
Your mother's father.
Both my grandfather, Prevost, and Landry lived next door to one another. My mother's bedroom was there, my dad's bedroom was there.
The boy and the girl next door.
There you go. There you go. And they had a camp at Joe's Pond, the 2 grandfathers, next to one another. They were best friends, so that worked out nice. But I never knew my grandfather, Landry. He died before I was born.
And your grandmother's?
The only grandmother I knew was my grandmother, Landry. My grandfather Prevost died when I was 5 years old. I remember that well. So the only grandparent we really grew up with as my grandmother, Marie Landry. She was such a nice lady.
That's nice, that relationship.
Yeah, she was pretty special.
So where did you go to school?
Mount St. Joseph Academy, Catholic school with the CND nuns for 12 years.
And that was in St. Johnsbury?
Yes.
How did you get there?
Oh, we'd walk. Come home for lunch and walk back. It wasn't all that far. But I had a friend who lived in High Street, and she'd run home and run back. We didn't have gym and all that fancy paraphernalia they have now. We got our exercise by walking and running and playing and whatever. We did as well as they do today.
And did you have good teacher,
Oh,
or
yes.
did you have, were it the nuns?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very, and they were, there was a few were a little bit strict when we got to be like 5th grade, and we'd say, oh, she's so mean. But when you get out of 5th grade and you look back, you say, wow, that was good. So they were very nice ladies.
And how many students in your class?
We graduated the biggest class out of Mount St. Joseph, and we were 12. No, my sister was 12, we were 16. That was a big class. But it was a small school.
And so what were the grades 1 through, or kindergarten, or one?
It was, they had, well, they called it back then baby grade, but it was kindergarten through 12. So I graduated from there.
And then you went on?
Nowhere. I got married.
Married.
I was lacking a month for and I was lacking 2 weeks for my 20th birthday.
Where did you meet John?
He was part of the gang. We had friends from the academy, friends like John and his family. He worked on the farm for his dad, more or less, and really wasn't allowed to go to school there. He went to Waterford, and he was kept home to help with the dad till the truant officer came in and sent him back to school. So he turned out to be a very good manager and worker, and it was all self-made. He was a pretty smart guy.
So in your house in St. Johnsbury, at that time, how was the house heated?
Coal furnace, which made for a lot of, when you did the spring cleaning, things got a little sooty. And 3 stories of house to clean. I remember one time when they delivered coal, they had to wet it down, hose it down a little bit so it wouldn't make dust, and somebody forgot. And I remember we had black dust all the way to the 3rd floor. It was horrendous. It was really bad.
Did you pitch in?
Not as much as I perhaps should have. My poor mom. But we all did, our share, but not maybe as much as looking back, it could have helped a little more.
And what about groceries and food? Did you have a backyard enough to have a garden, or?
We had a small garden, but back then you had Mr. Clois used to come around and sell the meat out of his meat truck, and then you had vegetable guys coming along, and your milk was delivered at the porch, and it was very different.
Yeah.
But it worked well.
Yeah.
We didn't expect all this fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't miss it.
Pretty nice though to have it right there. Now,
Yes.
I think people would like to have that again.
I guess so.
The meat truck and the...
But people are not apt to go wash these vegetables, and it's more work to buy fresh from the garden. That's why people don't like to do it now.
And you're busy working too.
It's a different world.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have a refrigerator?
We did. But in the house, there was an ice box. And it was part of the kitchen, built by my Uncle Ed. He lived with us for a while. Uncle Ed was a wonderful person and a very good contractor, cabinet maker. And he had this ice box that was built in, and it had a big, thick door with a latch that, wooden latch. And you put the ice from the outside, so they never came in the house to bring the ice.
Clever.
Yes.
And where'd they get the ice from?
Handy's, I think it was Handy's had the ice truck then. And they had 3 ponds. I know where it is, I can tell you. Concord Avenue, when you come to, there's all kinds of houses developed there, but they had their house and they had 3 ponds, and they would cut the ice off those ponds, and you could have it all year round. Packed in sawdust, it always amazed me.
Yeah, how it managed to stay.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But at Joe's Pond, we had a nice box with a tray underneath that always overflowed. That wasn't quite as cute. Yeah, but it was a camp. It wasn't a house, it was a camp. And so if there was water on the floor, you wiped it up and went on with your
Yeah,
day.
you didn't expect it to be as fancy.
No, we'd say, let's not forget next time. Well,
Did you spend the summer there, or just go to?
we did
to
when
and
we
from?
were younger. We spent summers in Joe's Pond. I don't know what time it was that, like what year we stopped going. Mother started renting the camp so that she could have more income from it. And it's still there. It's still there. That brings back memories.
Yeah. And you don't own it anymore. So you got married when?
January 3rd, 1951. But I told John, I said, next time I marry you, it will not be January 3rd. It's not a good time.
Yes. Where did you get married?
At the Catholic Church, Notre Dame, was it that time? So you had Notre Dame, you had the rectory, and you had the Catholic schools all on that knob. Where the Silways dentistry is, that was the rectory.
Oh.
It's a beautiful
that's
place.
lovely up there.
And that church was just delightful.
Yes.
It was built according to some church in Paris somewhere. I don't remember which one, but it was good.
And was it a big wedding with a lot of family?
Perhaps 100. We couldn't afford all that much, so we kept it down. But it was very nice. My mother had bought me a fur jacket for the occasion, so it was good.
And then you and John moved here
Yes.
to...
John started farming in 1950, and the barn was there, but the house had burnt down. The farmhouse that went with it had burnt down, and so they rebuilt on the same foundation, which is a little silly, but and it was 3 bedrooms and not very big house, but it was comfortable. It was ours, and we were pretty excited. Then we had start having children, and John would add to the barn, and we'd get a bigger car and add to the house. We added to the house. We had 6 kids and hired men that lived in the house. So we had 1 bedroom, and the kids had the other. I had 5 cribs in one room, a used bed and 4 cribs. Wow, there's a big room up there, but it's like a dormitory. Nobody minded. They woke up in the night, or somebody cried, nobody'd hear it. There were 1 bathroom. Then we enlarged it. We put more house than was there before, and that was very nice.
Yeah.
We had 6 bedroom upstairs and 2 downstairs.
And the kids could spread out.
5 bedrooms upstairs. 5 bedrooms upstairs, and then 2 downstairs. That's what it was. Yeah.
So 6 kids is what?
No, I went on to have 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah. Have 8 children.
You had a span in between, or?
We had 6 in a row, and then there's, I think, 3 years, 4 years between Mimi and There were days that I sold them cheap, but I'm glad I didn't. It only lasted for an hour. And it's just wonderful, the family I have right now. People will say, well, I could never afford it. If you did it the way we did, you could. And I don't blame anyone. You don't have to go out and have 8 kids, but I'm glad I have them.
And did they pitch in at the farm?
Oh, yes.
Well, what kind of farming did you do, first of all?
Dairy.
Uh-huh.
John started with 35 cows, and we ended out with about 200, 230 milkers, which means you have double that with the young stock and the yearlings and all. So it turned out to be a pretty big business. And I think we were in business at the right time. We could make money then. You can't now, because we have no more of our own cows now. It's just not working. Because they pay you less than production price, but business can keep going. Unless you have everything paid, which we did, but Paul didn't. You had to pay us back for some of that, because that's what we lived on. It's going to change all over Vermont.
Yeah.
All these barns and the open fields, you're not going to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have time to work on the farm or not with 8 kids?
I took care of the books. I was the gopher, because back then, if anything broke down, you'd put the kids in the car and go get whatever, and you had dealers, within maybe 50, 80 miles, and people right around here, but if you had to go that far, you could. Nowadays, everything comes on UPS. You have to pay the shipping, because there's not that many dealers around anymore. And I would go deliver the calves if he wasn't going to keep the newborn calf. You would sell them. And I remember going down the road one time, how come I didn't have the kids, but big bull that John had put in a bag, he would put him in a burlap bag and tie it around his neck. Not so as it would choke him, but so he couldn't stand. Well, some of those bulls are like 100 pounds. And then he'd put it in, he had a special tub that he would put them in, and put it in my car. So we're going down the road, and this newborn bull, about 100 pounds, got out of his burlap bag, and he's standing out back licking my neck, and I'm going down the road to say, oh, I don't think this is supposed to happen. And more things happened. I had kids crying, trying to get parts, it was...
At least he was a friendly bull.
And I took care of the books, and we'd have 2 or 3 hired men, and I'd be feeding them too, and go get the animals, and sometimes have to feed the young stock. They need special feed, and a lot of things that I did. Things that I did I thought I shouldn't have. But we survived it, and it was wonderful when you look back.
Yes.
At the time it was hard.
You have large family gatherings, since you also had your
yes.
siblings nearby, and
Yes.
the holidays must have been quite interesting.
But mostly with the Zhangs, because John had 3 siblings. There was 3 boys and a girl, and my in-laws lived in that house over there. So we would have parties and get-togethers and Christmas and the holidays. A lot of people, a lot of little kids, and Mr. and Mrs. Zhang did it for a long time, and when she got to be older, my sister-in-law and I said, well, next year, this is too much for you, so next year what we'll do is we'll bring the food, just set your table. She had tables all over. And so we get there, and she had made this in case we forgot to bring that, and different salads, just in case. So I told her, I said, next year it's at my house, because you can't listen to me. She pointed to her husband. He wanted her to be ready in case people didn't bring what he wanted. So we had it here, and it broke his heart, but she was happy. Even now, I used to have, Christmas and the holidays, like 25, 30 people. I can't do that anymore, not at age 7.
But someone can step up, because you now
Oh,
have,
they
you
do.
have how many grandchildren now?
But they're not all here. I have 23 grandkids, 17 are boys, and 24 great-grandkids. The oldest one is 10, and there's one coming.
So they're in other states or other parts of Vermont?
We have some in Arizona, in the state of Washington. We have some in Virginia. And we'll have some in California, because my son's leaving for California. So the crowds aren't quite as big. Maybe we'll be 25 instead of 30. But everybody brings food, and they get up and they'll wash dishes, and it works good. It's not all on me now.
And where do they gather here?
Christmas is always at the farmhouse, because when we traded house, my son said, "You know, Mom, it's been tradition. It's always been here." And before he even finished asking me, I said, "Yeah, that'd be nice." But usually, Raynette, my daughter, lives down the road. She'll take Easter, and Louise, when she had her house here, she did Thanksgiving, and then in the summertime, the kids will all have cookouts or gatherings like that, which is good.
Now, which son has the farmhouse now?
Number 3, Paul. And this was his house. So when we traded house, it took me 40 years to have the house looking like I wanted. You know, everything was done, the beds were nice, it was clean everywhere. And I used to just sit there and the sun come up and say, wow. And then it just made sense that Paul would be there and we would be here. So my husband said, "I'm going to cry when I leave this house. It was built for us." And I said, I don't like the thought of leaving, but it just got to be practical. But I said that this house here will be fine if I can have a bathroom downstairs and a sun porch. That was over here. That deck was here. And so he came with a tractor, picked up the deck with all kinds of chain, put it in the corner of the lawn, and he built this. And then he put the deck back. And he went out in the woods in the hill back there to cut the wood and had it sawed. And he built me a storage room underneath. And he said, "You don't want a screened-in porch." And I said, "I don't like it when people tell me what I don't want." And he said, "This is the north side. And when the wind blows here, you're hanging onto the porch post sometimes." So he was right.
Well, you have a lot of screens. You can do whatever. You can make it however breezy you
can-
want.
Yes. The thing is, when it starts to rain, you better know how
Which
to
way it's going.
get back. But it's just been wonderful.
So John built this.
He did. He did. With no education, he started right down. Bill came up even with that. He's
He knew what he was doing.
a very smart guy.
Yeah. Did his
Yes.
father train him kind of? Does father teach him a lot of that? No.
His father was a great businessman, never went to school, but really a very intelligent man.
And who was his father?
Rosario?
He was the one who immigrated from Canada.
Yes.
Okay. On the Zhang side.
John was born in Canada.
Ah.
His sister Rosanna and John were born in Canada, and then they came and here, and Roland was in the suitcase, and then she had one more. So he went through customs pretty well.
Do you still have relatives in Canada?
On my side, on the Prevost side, it'd be my mother's family. I had one cousin. We had 3 cousins in Canada and a couple of aunts and quite a few. We'd go to Montreal several times a year, or they would come because my uncle worked for CPR, so they could jump on the train, come to St. Johnsbury and have no problem. But on the Rosario side, they came from Quebec area. Actually, they kept talking about St. Rose all the time, and I kept thinking, and they would work in the woods. It was a poor area. They had, the most was 8 cows, I guess, and then they would do the haying in the summer's work and get the wife pregnant, and then they would leave for the woods for the winter. Those ladies were snowed in their place. They'd have all their provisions, everything was there, but imagine how lonely it must have been.
Yeah.
And these guys were in the woods, and he was saying they worked in the woods in Maine. I'm thinking, how could you work in the woods in Maine? Well, one time I went with John to St. Rose, Quebec. It's 20 miles away. You can see Maine from where they were. It's just, St. Rose is delightful, just a little mound, a very small little hamlet, and everything is pristine, clean, flowers, everything. It's really nice. And then you go to Quebec City, and it's nice too, but that's so much more hectic. You see the difference. Fun.
I remember that in 2014 the Waterford Historical Society had an event called Barn to Table, and you participated, didn't you?
I did.
Will you tell us what you made?
Yes, I made Emerald Lagasse's recipe on hot corn dip. We used, of course, we sell corn, and I thought this would be a good dish to bring. And when we did get to the church, it was held in the church basement, I think it was. And I had made the dip, and I tasted it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody. And because it was so hot and spicy, and I thought somebody's not going to like this, and I didn't have time to start over. So when came my turn, I told them that this was the Zhang super good corn, and if they found it a little hot, not to spit on the floor, because that's an old wood church, and it would burn the church down. Made everyone interested in trying it, and they said it was all very good. Some of them wanted the recipe, so it was great. I was amazed at the different types of barns we have in Waterford, weren't you?
Yeah.
Because there's one that was done by the same contractor that built the Athenaeum and the museum, I think.
Oh, Packard?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. There's a barn there that has that type of structure. Well, actually he built. And there were some built like they did in England, and some of the good old American barns. The reason why she chose our barn, I think, is because there's no barn in Waterford that's such a conglomeration of barns. We had the original barn that they solidified into all that, which was great. Then John wanted more cows, so he went down and bought Millen Ball's barn, which was that rounded, I don't remember the style that is. And he took a chainsaw and he cut it up, put it on the flat bed with his tractor, came down here and put it back together. And a while later he wanted more space, and he went down on Route 18 and got Pelletier's barn that was also cut down with a chainsaw and put on the flatbed and added to that. And then he added a lean-to for another string of cows. Then he built a new milk room, and built a sawdust pen at one end, and then at the other end he built a calving area. So there's nothing anywhere that looks like that. It's quite interesting,
Unique.
actually.
That's nice you were able to collect all the barns in the area and put them in
I
one
just
place.
couldn't believe how clever he was. You never could tell. I mean, it was all blended well.
Talented.
He had built a silo with 8x8s and hammered those big nails. We were in bed at night and he'd be hammering. His arm just did it. He really battered his body. Because work had to be done, whether it hurt you or not, had to be done.
And when did he die and how old was he?
He died 8 years ago, November 1st, and he was 82. And I've missed him ever since. We had hard times, but he sure was the love of my life. I guess when you love someone like that, you miss him forever. So it was.
Lucky to have such a nice life.
I think so.
So, Donna, do you want to talk about, well, Helen said something about a water supply lawsuit on Stiles Pond. Is that something that you want to talk about, or
No,
not?
don't get me started.
Oh.
I wish I had papers on it here, but
Can you summarize a little bit?
yes, we had, well, this was the Eisenhower's great escape to the north, which never made much sense to me because the enemy can blow one bridge and you can't escape anywhere, right? But anyway, it was on the books that they wanted this conglomeration of interstates. And so these people from, no, I can't remember, they were Washington people, I think, or whatever. They came to see you, all nice gentlemen, and they're so nice to you, and their only objective was to make you whole, and to not to disturb your business or anything. So we're quite gullible. They don't do what they tell you they're going to do. We had 8 miles of underground drainage here on this farm, draining some of the wetlands. And this was subsidized by the state of Vermont, so it wasn't something we went and did illegally or anything like that. But when they came to start the interstate, we were fighting them. We had, to start with, when they designed this interstate 20 years before, there were 3 farms here. We were the bigger farm maybe, but there was 3 on this side. If you went on the other side of the mountain, there were 12 farmers. So naturally, they put 3 people out of business rather than 12, which kind of makes sense. Well, 20 years later, there are no farms on the other side, but we were still thriving at the time. They didn't want to change the plan because of Act 250. They would have to redo everything, get permits for everything. They didn't want to do that. So we started looking to see if we could find someone who could help us to make them realize they need to go on the other side. So that's where the whole thing started. Then they started to be pretty nasty. And the year they started making that, they dug in the beginning of January. Well, in Vermont, you don't start an interstate in the middle of January. The people, the contractors that were working were very upset. It took them half the day to start their diesel engines to get going. They got nothing done practically. But when we went to court, they already had started and spent so much money. That was their idea. We had NBC TV interview us here, and a few weeks later we had ABC TV. We had people from Washington. We had people from Montpelier. Half of them were for us, the other half was against us. So when they started, they cut that drainage system without capping it. So all the silt for 3 years is going into these drainage system. And when we went to court, John said, what about my land that's going to get wet? And they said, is it wet now? John said it took 3 years to drain it. It's going to take 3 years to get wet again, as it was before. And they said, well, he's just a farmer, never went to school. Their whole thing, all the way through, was dumb farmer type. You wouldn't believe how underhanded they were. They had this little lawyer, and when we'd have recess, he'd say, oh, I'm sorry, that's just the way I have to work, and I want to punch him in the face. But we learned a lot about government and things like that. And they did build their interstate. They didn't want to, we had 5 houses with wood furnaces at the time. All that wood up on the mountain there. And they said, well, that's landlocked to us. We have to go on somebody's land to get on top there. And if you want to get wood, it has 15-foot ravines throughout the mountain. It's part of Stouse Pond's watershed. I told the guy, I said, yeah, they can still go get the wood. What are they going to do, bring it in their arms? All the way. We own a mile down here and up in the mountain. I mean, it just didn't make sense. And then they finally decided that we needed an underpass. It took them 2 days of coming here. The first day was 2 engineers. The first day was raining, so they spent their time in the truck. Second day, they measured the equipment. I don't need to be an engineer to measure equipment. Then they built the underpass too narrow and too steep to really use. And they put crushed rock at the bottom of it, which cows will not cross on crushed rock. They know better. So we had to fight and fight to get them to pave it. And when we went to court, they condemned the whole thing. Do you know how much money to the taxpayers that cost? Now we can't use up there. And also the fact that the new laws are that you can't have cows anywhere within 25 feet of any waterway. So we've got 3 crevices there with water. It's not really a brook, but it's wet, and again, it's like I said, it's all part of the shed, the watershed. So if you put a fence 25 feet this way and 25 feet the other way, then it meets the other brook. So we can't use that. Can't use that.
So that never got resolved, that whole thing then?
No, and what they did is gather all the water with 2 drainage across under the interstate. So they dump all that on the land below. What happens to the land below? Oh, they think it's fine. It's not fine. John knew that way before, and then again, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got no education.
So that's how it's left?
Well, yeah, they had to come back for some of it. They had to dig a ditch, and they had to help with that because it was ruining all our fields down there. But I mean, and we went to Montpelier one time before they built it. It was all these farmers that were being affected by this, and this gentleman, his name was Cushman. I always remember that. So one person's saying this, the other farmer's saying, and then he says, "Stop!" He said, "This has all been designed by engineers." And I couldn't stop it. I said, "And we do know they make mistakes, don't we?" If I could have killed him. He didn't like me very well by the time we got done. But I mean, there are good engineers, but there are some that just have, I have common sense. I don't have much intelligence or education, but I have common sense. You can see it. But they got their way.
They had their agenda. Is that what you remember, that part at all?
Well, I rode with, I think, Joe
Yeah.
and Paul to Montpelier to one of the hearings, and Joe didn't get, he didn't win.
No.
But I just remember at the end of the hearing that the lawyer, I guess for the state or something, came up to Joe and said, "Well, you can always sell your farm and buy another farm, just like that's his homestead.
Right.
Just no feelings whatsoever."
They kind of did that with us. They said, "Well, you're losing that a piece of property, but you can buy more." And I said, "And what? Drag it home?"
Yeah. Yeah.
They know nothing about farming. I don't think. They just don't know what they're talking about. I don't think they...
Yeah.
And they're not interested in learning from the people
That's-
who understand the land.
No, because it's always been dumb farmers, and that's still a stigma. You'd be surprised what you need to know to be a farmer.
Oh, sure.
You have to be a vet, you have to be a businessman, you have to be so
Mechanic.
much.
Gotta be a mechanic.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that, I could keep talking for a long time, but I wanted to say the important stuff anyway. But it did harm us quite a bit, and we won in court. But you know, people, to them, $10,000 is a lot of money, but it doesn't give you what the land would have given you.
So those pasture up there is not useful anymore?
No, now you can't even pasture your cows. For a while we did, but you can't.
Oh,
All the
since
big
the-
equipment would not fit through the underpass. It's just stuff that's gone by. Then we were sued by the town of St. Johnsbury, and it looked really good on the Caledonian. It says Shang refused to pay water bill. It's our water. We have a deed to the water. They wouldn't accept that, and it was Dave Clark at the time, and he says, "John, so we got to put a meter in your barn." Of course, they knew we were using a lot of water for our animals, and John said, "You can put a meter if you want, but I'm not paying the water. Mine." He said, "No, it's okay." And they put the meter on, and then they started sending us bills. They sent us bills for 6 months, and John would call Clark and say, "You know what, I told you before, this is ours, we have a deed to it. In fact, we have 2 deeds to it. We have a deed that came with the farm, and we have a deed when they put we have a lot of town of water pipes throughout our land, and they put a hydrant here, and the deed to it we can use all the water we want out of that hydrant. Cost us $25,000 to keep what was already ours. And the town wanted to say, well, okay, we'll give you the right to take this much water, which is more than what you're using now. Not a whole lot, but anyway. And I told John, don't you ever do that. I said, right now we have something that's foolproof, and you're going to start playing with it. There's no stopping them. So we kept it the way it was. That's worth a lot to a farm.
Oh, yeah.
But that was all dug by hand, put pipes to this farm. And then when the town bought Stiles Pond, you know, they gave a deed. They can't take your water away. They can't take your water away. So we have and it's for the land. Water rights is for the land. It's not just the farmer. They tried to say, well, the farmer must have had like 8 to 10 cows, so that's all they meant to give you is water for 8 to 10 cows. Are you kidding? Anyway, that was interesting too. And when it got done, we went to court, and the judge threw it out of court. And the town still wanted to bring it back up. Anyway, they didn't get it.
And that's done. Good. Fight.
So Dave Clark says, you could empty that pond and the town would be left without anything. And I said, what good would that be for us if we emptied the pond? You have to be smart about it, but that pond is phenomenal. It hardly ever goes down.
Is it spring fed?
Yes. Yes. I think you can dig anywhere in that mountain and find water. It's really, and so when we have a big drought, this land is pretty good. If it's a wet year, it's not so good then, is it?
Do you remember the Dussel farm up on the hill?
Yes.
I don't remember the buildings, but Andy Dussel sent me pictures of
Did
the
he?
farmhouse and the barn.
And my mother remembers going there with Dr.
Okay.
Prevost, her dad,
Oh,
because she used to accompany him sometimes to just help him carry things, because he went to everybody's farm, or everybody's house. That's the way you did doctoring back then, and she remembers the Dussel farm pretty well. Isn't Andy a sweetheart?
yeah,
He's the nicest guy.
yeah.
Is that farm there?
The land
No.
is still there, but you can find the foundation, maybe. And this used to be it's called Slate Road. It was a class 4 road, and it's a coach road. That's interesting to look into.
Yes, that's very
Yeah.
true. Yes.
Do you have the name of who owned the farm before the Zhangs bought it? Before Rosera bought
This
the
farm?
farm? Yeah.
It was the Hill Farm.
The Hill Farm? Oh, okay.
Barbara Bissett is a Hill, isn't she? She
Yeah, I'm not
remembers
sure.
coming here as a youngster
Oh,
and playing with his grandparents and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
the family gatherings here.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a while.
oh.
And it was called the Ball Road, Millard Ball. But before Millard, I mean, it's called Higgins Hill, but Clark always talked about Ball Road.
Hmm.
And when they redid everything else, Dr. Walsh, that's Walsh Road and
Yeah.
all this, and we thought it would be Zhang Road, but they didn't. They kept it Higgins Hill. But in the Vermont Atlas, it was Zhang Road.
Oh. Hmm.
It's just, doesn't matter, I suppose, but. So that's it. Now I go to Florida and enjoy the month there.
And where do you go?
I go to Ocala. We've been doing that, John and I, for 25 years.
Isn't that equestrian center?
Yes, horse country, beautiful ranches all over. And we bought where we are, we're a little bit out of the main town because it was all horse farms. There's none left now. None left. They take their horses, they sell the land that is worth a mint. They take their horses and they go a little bit more in a rural area and they keep going. They don't lose a thing.
Mm.
But it is, I wanted to be near the water, but John didn't like water.
Well,
And I think because there are a lot of relatives in Ocala that he kind of wanted to be around there. His brother was in Inverness, not far, and it certainly wasn't a sacrifice to go down there. He was so happy when he went to Florida, more than me.
But now you like it.
I do. We've been there so long. We have friends and relatives too, and it's really very nice. And a lot of people my age have died or gone back home, and the new younger group, and they still invite me to go, and I invite them, and it's pretty good. When John died, which was, I still chuckle about it, which might sound funny, but he said, don't sell the Florida house yet, because people do that too quickly. When a spouse dies, you know, they hurry up and sell everything, and it might be good for you to be going to Florida in the winter, so try it first. And then he said, I think there's enough money for you to live comfortably, which is true. Then he told me how to fix the porch post that went up and down in the wintertime. That was a loose end, that corner right there. Told me how to do it. So I told this to the kids, and one of my grandsons wanted to fix it right off, but isn't that a riot? He didn't like loose ends.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Did he have any trouble, like for somebody that, you know, worked with his hands and worked on the farm, once he went to Florida? Did he have trouble settling down to, you know, did he have to keep busy all the time?
Oh yes, he had to keep busy, but he, if you could get him far enough away from the farm, he could relax. It really amazed me. He loved Florida much more than I did at the time. And he'd say, isn't this wonderful, isn't this wonderful? Even if we went shopping in a tool shop someplace, or Walmart and walked around, it didn't matter as long as he was out doing something. And we got to know friends. We did square dancing. You could square dance every night of the year, and we got to know a lot of people, which was delightful. And we had a good time. Good time. So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story of your life with us, and we appreciate it.
well, I was wondering, what do they want to talk to me about? I still don't really consider myself from Waterford, I guess, but, you know, like, there are people who have been in Waterford a lot longer than me.
So
Yeah, it's got 2 minutes, counting down. 7.
I'm gonna pause then.
Okay, yeah, we'll pause for a minute. Because the light, for some reason, when you lean forward, it,
Ah,
it looked better. But the light, I don't know. As soon as I switch it to the camera to do the video, it changes.
So are we okay with this?
Well, not. I just want to kind of work on it a little bit,
Okay. All right.
just to get it.
All right. I'm just gonna look over, well, we've covered a lot. You're just on it.
Oh, I know. I got a question.
that's isn't it the testing that they do in case there's something?
Oh,
It
that's
is
right.
perfect timing, because I just turned this off. Well, I would have had to put
Yes,
Oh,
isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it's that
What
test.
made it do that? Is that
They
my
do
phone?
that.
It's a national test.
Is that my phone that did that?
Yeah, I
Sitting
think
there?
so.
Oh, I'm gonna turn that off, because,
Yeah.
oh, presidential alert,
Yeah.
emergency. Okay.
Something new.
Yeah, really, let's get this off.
Okay, just gonna.
Because sometimes it's testing.
Yeah.
I can't
Oh.
believe what luck we just had to get this off.
Yeah, that was in the paper, I think, today about that national test.
Oh, gee, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it kind of, at first you wonder, is this for real? We were at a wedding one time at 6 o'clock in the morning. The alarm starts ringing everywhere and everybody's in their PJs running out. and it had been raining outside and firemen are running down the hallway. It was my brother-in-law who was making toast in his room.
Oh, no.
An awful thing that was. But you know, the alarm goes off and John and I look at each other, is this for real or somebody, is it just you don't know at first, and so we look outside the hallway, so yeah, I think we better get out.